Greetings. I would like to introduce you to a few of the assessments that you'll be giving to your practicum student. These assessments will be done right away in your first couple sessions with the student, and I would expect that you would spend probably an hour to 2 hours of your practicum time giving these assessments. As you can see, I have hopefully the screen shared here, and this is under session 6. We begin our formal and informal assessment tools and practices for evaluating student reading development. And what you'll be looking at are a few integrity sessions and listening to a website on how to score miscue and do miscue analysis. So those 2 YouTube videos are placed there to help you with that understanding. And then down here at the bottom you have 4 different assessments that you can begin giving your students. During week 7 you're going to be learning how to use the QRI, which is one of the textbooks you have for this course. The QRI goes in depth and also provides you with a DVD and video examples of how to administer that, so I won't be including that specific instruction in this integrity session. So the first 2 assessments you're going to be administering your student really depend on the age of your student and the needs. So hearing, recording sounds, and concepts of print are very emergent level skills that you would be assessing students. So if you're looking at between kindergarten and 2nd grade, these 2 assessments are probably likely for you to give your student that you're spending your practicum time with. However, if your student is 3rd grade and above, it doesn't necessarily mean they won't need it, but you might not have to give it because their skill set is much beyond that. If you want to practice giving the assessment with them, and that's great. However, you're welcome to practice it with an adult of your choosing, or anyone really, just to get an idea of what those 2 assessments are like. Hearing and recording sounds, the administration directions are on the link right here that I've provided, and this is adapted from Mari Clay's observation survey, as well as Concepts of Print is too. So they are not directly from the observation survey, but they are adapted with the idea that we are listening. Hearing and recording is used to listen to how students, or to see how students can hear sounds and then produce them in written work. And then concepts of print is, again, that emergent skill of how does a student handle a book, turning pages left to right, reading left to right, what periods, commas, all of those things are for. So again, 2 very emergent level assessments, and you're, again, welcome to give them to your student even if they are above the emergent stages, just for practice, or try practicing with someone else that you know that wouldn't mind doing that with you. So the next 2 assessments are, well, the 3rd one, I should say, also has an article to go along with it, as well as administration instructions. And this is really what we call a word spree, where you're going to have the student for 10 minutes write down as many words as they can think of. It's really unconventional in a sense and can make students a little uncomfortable because they don't quite understand why you're asking them to write everything down. So just encourage them. Use the prompts that are in the administration instructions to get them thinking about more words, and also try to do it in an area that doesn't have a lot of text around the student, so they're not pulling off the wall some scientific word that I wouldn't know how to spell either. So just be cautious of that when you're administering this assessment. The idea behind the Word Writing Cafe, though, or the word spree, is to really get an idea of what the student has in their known vocabulary of written words. So you do look at spelling in this, and you also look at syllable count, but the bigger picture here is to see what do they have under control, what do they know, and then you know, hopefully guiding them to where you can build more written vocabulary for them. So, and then the final one that you'll be administering prior to the QRI, and There's also a writing one, but we'll go over that in a minute. But this is the Words Their Way spelling assessment. And this is a spelling test for the most part. You're going to be given them 25 to 32 words depending on the list you choose. We have primary, elementary, and upper. So depending on their grade level and where you think they currently can handle, you can choose any one of those lists. And I pulled up the primary list, and I'll bring that up here. And as you can see, the directions right here and kind of overall is the primary spelling inventory is used in kindergarten through 3rd grade. The 26 words are ordered by difficulty to sample features of letter, name, alphabetic to within word pattern stages. So this set of words is going to give you an idea of where they might fall within those different spelling stages. You're going to call out enough words so that you have at least 5 or 6 misspelled words to analyze. So the big part of this is to get information to analyze, not to see whether they spelled it right or wrong per se, but more so analyzing what are they doing and where's the next step to take them. So you may find that you're going to only call the first 5 words if you're using a younger student, and that's okay. Hopefully you'll find information within that. And then in the later stages, you're going to call out at least 15 words so that you can sample some of the digraphs and blends that are used within those words. And then, of course, you can do the entire list depending on your student's stamina too, and obviously how they're spelling. If you get through all 26 words and you have just a few misspelled words, or you're not feeling like you have enough to analyze, definitely check out one of the other, I'll pull up the elementary, one of the other lists, and you can see that they start out from pretty simple. We're looking at the basics of the spelling stages all the way up to the trickier areas in spelling. So feel free to move to the next list if your student got through all of those. If you get to the upper list and they've spelt them all correctly, and that's great. However, I'd be surprised, but then you obviously know your student has spelling under control, so that's good. But the upper spelling list is definitely a much trickier. And in the past, even with my high school students that I worked with, I rarely gave this list out, and I was also working with struggling readers, but they definitely found information to analyze giving the elementary list. So, all right, so let's take a look. I've pulled up a notebook to help you with this. Once you give the Words Their Way spelling inventory, if you look down here, this is my mock spelling from somebody, I guess. I just made it up. But you can see that they spelt fan, pet, dig, and rob correctly. So these first 4 looking good. We get to hope, and they left off the E. Wait, left out the I, but spelled gum correctly. Sled, I think, was the word, and they spelled that correctly too. So when you're looking at, I'll go back to here, you have an analysis page. Just counterclockwise this so you can see it, or clockwise it, I guess. So you can see that, oh, I don't want to use that one. I'm going to use the primary. Sorry about that. You can see that each list has a page for you to analyze. It's called a feature guide, and it follows the Words Their Way spelling stages. So with what we've been talking about in class with the 3 stages, this is really taking those stages and breaking them down even further, and follows what Words Their Way has created as their spelling stages. So the final page on here is something you don't need to use. However, if you were a classroom teacher and you're trying to analyze your entire class, it's a chart for your whole class. So really you don't need to worry about those last 2 pages. This page, though, is the one that you're going to really focus your time on, because it's going to help you analyze all of those words that your student has spelled. So it isn't as clear on my screen here, but I want to show you that as I look at fan, I'll put my pointer here. As I look at fan, the student got the word correct. So I give them a check for getting the initial consonant and the final consonant, as well as the short vowel, which becomes a total of 3 feature points, and they get a check for spelling the word correctly. So I go through all of my words that the student has spelled, and I check off what are they doing. Yep, they spelled this correctly, so they have the initial consonant, the final consonant, and the short vowel done correctly. And as we get up to our first word they spelled incorrectly, which was hope, we can look in here further. In hope, they get a point or a check mark or a point for the initial consonant and the final consonant because they were able to identify those and spell those. However, if you look over here, the long vowel pattern, OE, they don't get a check mark for it. And so they would get 2 feature points for this. I'll mark that there. I didn't mark them all just because of it's hard to mark on here, but so you can see they would still get 2 feature points here, but they don't get a check mark for spelling it correctly. So you go throughout, and again, wait, they had the initial and the final correct, but they didn't have the long vowel. Gum, they spelled correctly, so they get them all and all feature points, and then a check mark for the word. And sled, they also spelled correctly. We moved down to their next miscue, though, or misspelling, and it was stick. Well, under stick, we don't have the initial and final consonants. At this point within the assessment, Words Their Way feels that if they got those initial words with the initials and final consonants, that there's no reason to continue checking that. They have this under control. So we move on to kind of the later stages in spelling, and we're not going to focus here anymore because we're pretty confident the student has it under control for the most part. But stick, they didn't spell correct. They did get that initial blend, st, the st, and they got the short vowel, but they didn't get the final consonant sound, the ck, so we're not going to give them a point for that, but there is no feature to cover that misspelling, which is fine. We're not looking for that necessarily at this point, but what we won't mark off is getting that word spelled correctly, even though they got both the feature points for stick. Shine, they spelled, I think, shin. If we look down here, where is it? So gum, sled, stick, shin. So we look back up at shine, and they have that diagraph, the initial diagraph there, but they don't have the long vowel pattern. Dream, they spelled D-R-E-M. Initial, that blend they had correct, but the long vowel pattern they didn't. And so you go throughout the entire list that you have, or until your student stopped, or you stopped your student, and you analyze what they were able to do, what features were they able to attend to within each of those spelling words. When you're all done and you've got it all, I know this is really sloppy, but when you got it all totaled up and you've looked through all of their words, then you go down each list and you can calculate. They had 7 out of 7 initial consonants and 7 out of 7 final consonants. I'm feeling like this student has this under control. Let's look at the next line. We're looking at short vowels, which is the beginning of the letter name alphabetic stage. And it looks like, oh yeah, they have got short vowels, 7 out of 7, have those under control. Now we're going to start looking at some more of the later stages in that letter name alphabetic and diagraphs. Yeah, they've got them for the most part. Missed 1, so 6 out of 7. And it also looks like their blends they have down really well. However, we move off right away, and this is pretty severe. I don't know if this would ever happen like this for a real student, but who knows. The long vowel patterns, they missed it all. So they have 0 out of 2. Other vowels, again, those kind of strange, the vowels, the ows, the oi. So didn't get 2 out of 7 they got there. And then we move into the last inflected endings, and you can see 1 out of 7. So really we can see that the student broke down at this stage right here in long vowel patterns. This tells me right off the bat what they have under control, and that now I need to start working on exposing that student to more long vowel patterns and working with them, and then moving up through the stages. So that is how you give words their way spelling inventory. A brief example there for you. And the final one that you're going to be administering is just a 10-minute writing prompt. I don't have it up here right now, but maybe I could do it as we're speaking. The 10-minute writing prompt is you're going to have the student write for 10 minutes, or as long as you can get them to write. It would be nice to have a paragraph or two to analyze. And actually, I'm just going to wait on this because I'll show you. It'll have more instructions that will follow with it. So the instructions will be on there. You're going to give them a 10-minute writing prompt, a prompt of their choice, getting to know the students so that they could write about something that they're interested in, hockey camp, their art class, their friends, a family vacation, whatever you want to have them write on for 10 minutes, but you want a solid theme of some sort that they can kind of surround. So if they're going to write about their summer, that it's around a hockey camp or a summer vacation or something like that, not something so broad. And then we're going to use the 6 traits of writing to analyze that, and that will all be included in here as well. So those are your first 5 assessments, and they go pretty quick as you get through the 10-minute writing cafe and 10-minute writing prompt. And then the spelling assessment, takes a little bit, just depending on how many words you're going to have to give that student in order to get enough to analyze. So hearing and recording sounds and concepts of print go really quick as well. So yeah, you're looking at probably an hour for these, and the QRI is between, I'd say, 30 minutes and an hour as well. So that's week 6 or session 6 and the beginnings of our formal and informal assessment tools. Of course, if you have questions, feel free to email me. Thank you.